We spend our lives trying to build a resume. We study, we work, we accumulate resources, all driven by a deep human need to earn status and prove that we hold value before the coin finally drops. Because we live in a transactional world, we naturally project that exact same economic logic onto religion. We assume that if we put in the hard work and follow the moral rules, God is legally obligated to hand us a reward. The ancient world had a name for this obsession with building your own self-made status. They called it mammon. It's the act of bowing down to a worldly system just to secure a personal standing. This entire mindset relies on a universe that is strictly fair. You get exactly what you earn, and you pay for what you break, which perfectly sets us up to be completely blindsided by the profoundly unfair reality of Christian grace. In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus tells a story that has confused readers for 2,000 years. It features a regional manager who gets caught embezzling his master's wealth. Knowing he's about to be fired and left with nothing, the manager panics. He calls in all of his master's debtors and hastily slashes what they owe on the official ledgers, cooking the books to buy himself a secure future with these new friends. Here is where the story gets strange. When the master finds out, he doesn't throw the manager in prison. He actually praises the crook for his shrewdness. This infuriated the religious elite of the time, the Pharisees. They were the ultimate rule followers, people who relied entirely on their own earned merit. To them, an unearned handout was deeply offensive. But Jesus was revealing a difficult truth. God's system does not demand squeaky clean rule followers. His system of grace inherently requires you to operate like a shrewd spiritual thief. To see how this works, we have to look back at ancient Israel, right at the height of King David's royal power. David has just secured his throne, but rather than resting on God's provision, he commits a grave sin. He conducts a military census, claiming the nation's men as his own personal army. He tries to build his own status by stealing God's military. God corners David with wrath, offering him 3 severe punishments. Looking at the sheer scale of the threat, David realizes his personal merit cannot save him from mass death, so he makes a calculated gamble. He refuses to earn his way out of the punishment. Instead, he throws himself entirely on God's mercy, putting his Lord in a theological bind. David knows the long-term plan. If God completely wipes out the nation in retribution, he destroys his own promised bloodline. He would wipe out the exact path required for the Messiah to arrive. David survives the ordeal not by proving his moral purity, but by shrewdly exploiting God's reputation and long-term plan for salvation. He banks everything on the character of the master. This dynamic is driven by a core theological mechanism, something theologians call the Great Exchange, and it is what makes spiritual embezzlement possible. This chart shows the cosmic ledger. On the left side, you have the crushing weight of human sin, a debt completely and thoroughly earned. On the right side, you have Christ's perfect, totally unearned righteous status. The transaction is absolute. The crushing debt is entirely wiped out for the human, and the perfect, glowing status of Christ is transferred directly to them. If this legal transaction feels a bit shady, that's because it is. We take the fruit hanging on the tree of life, even though we have done absolutely nothing to earn it. The brutal reality of this plunder is that all our value and all our destiny comes from merits we have stripped off the battered corpse of Christ hanging bloody on the tree. True faith isn't about scrubbing your own ledger clean. It is having the decency to bank entirely on Christ's unearned wealth instead of pointing to your own fake righteousness. There is a massive, liberating consequence to this great exchange. Because your divine status is completely unearned, it is impossible for you to lose it. Compare that to worldly wealth. Earthly mammon is fragile and temporary. You can work your entire life to build a financial empire, and it will ultimately fail to provide you with any salvation. But with your eternity permanently secured by someone else's merit, you are now free. You can take your resources and your unrighteous wealth and use them to radically serve your neighbors. This plays out in your daily vocations. You act as a legitimate manager of God's grace in your office, your home, and your community, giving freely to others because your own ultimate debt is zero. The purpose of this spiritual embezzlement is not to quietly sit in a corner hoarding grace. It is to actively operate as a generous, dishonest manager to the world around you. A day is coming when all earthly status, all wealth, and all self-built reputation will utterly fail. When the final cosmic bill of your life arrives, it will outline a massive debt of sin and rebellion that you simply cannot satisfy on your own. The physical act of taking communion is the weekly, earthly rehearsal for surviving that exact moment. Kneeling at the altar is the physical act of plundering. You bring your ledger of failure, you strike it out, and you drink down his innocent life instead. Your only hope at the end is to desperately cling to the ledger Jesus already paid. You will walk into eternity not as a perfect saint, but as a wealthy, commended thief.